In today's fast-paced world, productivity isn't just about working harder, it's about working smarter. One simple yet powerful method that has transformed the way people manage their time is the 2-minute rule for productivity. This rule is so effective because it eliminates procrastination, helps clear mental clutter, and creates momentum for bigger tasks. By mastering it, anyone can turn small actions into consistent progress. The foundation of the 2-minute rule lies in its elegant simplicity. If something takes less than 2 minutes to complete, then do it immediately. At first glance, this principle may seem almost trivial, as if such small actions couldn't possibly make a significant impact on overall productivity. Yet, when you begin to apply it consistently, you realize how powerful it is in dismantling procrastination, reducing mental clutter, and streamlining your workflow. Understanding this rule requires not only grasping its practical application, but also appreciating the psychology behind it and the broader influence it has on the way we interact with time and tasks. Think of a typical day in the life of a busy professional. The phone buzzes with an email notification. The email is short, requiring only a brief acknowledgement or a quick piece of information in response. Writing that reply would take no more than 90 seconds. However, instead of addressing it right away, many people think, "I'll do it later when I have more time." That email is then left unopened or flagged, becoming one more thing on the ever-expanding to-do list. Later in the day, when the person looks at their inbox, they see the same email again. Now, not only do they still have to respond, but they've also added an extra step, rereading the message, recalling the context, and then finally typing a reply. What could have taken 90 seconds now consumes more time and mental energy simply because it was delayed. This is the essence of why the 2-minute rule is so effective. The rule's power is magnified when you consider how many of these micro-tasks fill our days. Small actions, putting away a document, washing a dish, sending a confirmation message, or jotting down a quick note, often take less time than we assume. The problem is that we mentally inflate them, treating them as if they were larger obstacles than they actually are. By training ourselves to immediately complete any task that takes under 2 minutes, we not only prevent these tasks from piling up, but we also remove unnecessary friction from our lives. Instead of carrying around the mental weight of things left undone, we experience the lightness of having already addressed them. Understanding the 2-minute rule also means acknowledging its role in reducing decision fatigue. Every day, we make countless decisions about what to do, when to do it, and how to prioritize it. The brain has limited capacity for these choices, and the more trivial decisions we accumulate, the harder it becomes to focus on significant work. The 2-minute rule eliminates the need for deliberation on small tasks. If something can be done quickly, there's no debate. Just do it. This reduces the burden of constant choice-making, leaving your mental energy intact for the bigger, more complex challenges that truly require your focus. Another dimension of understanding the rule comes from the perspective of momentum. Productivity is not simply a matter of willpower. It's about building and sustaining momentum throughout the day. Often, the hardest part of any work session is simply getting started. Small quick wins, such as handling a 2-minute task, provide the psychological boost needed to create momentum. By checking off minor actions, you give yourself the sense of progress that propels you toward tackling larger projects. The brain thrives on accomplishment, and each small completion releases a little dopamine, reinforcing the behavior and making it easier to continue. It's also essential to see that the 2-minute rule isn't limited to professional environments. It applies equally well to personal life. For instance, instead of tossing your clothes onto a chair at the end of the day, hang them up immediately. It takes less than 2 minutes, but it prevents clutter from building up over time. Or consider washing a coffee cup right after using it instead of leaving it in the sink. These small acts keep your environment orderly, and an orderly environment supports a clearer mind. The principle is universal because human psychology is universal. Procrastination breeds stress, while immediate action breeds relief. Yet, truly understanding the rule also involves recognizing its limitations. Not every task should be rushed into. If something is important but requires careful thought, strategy, or creativity, it's not a candidate for the 2-minute rule. Trying to force deep work into a quick time frame undermines its quality. The rule is a tool for the small and simple, not the complex and meaningful. Knowing the difference between a task that belongs in the 2-minute category and one that requires deliberate scheduling is part of mastering this principle. This discernment comes with practice. Over time, you'll naturally recognize which actions are worth doing immediately and which deserve a place in your calendar. Psychologically, the rule also highlights a deeper truth. Many of the barriers to productivity are internal, not external. When you resist sending that email or filing that paper, it's not because the action itself is difficult. It's because your mind has exaggerated it into something bigger than it is. The 2-minute rule cuts through this mental distortion, reminding you that the easiest way to lighten the load is to just act. In this sense, it's not only a productivity hack, but also a form of mental training. It teaches you to challenge the narrative of delay and replace it with a bias toward action. One of the fascinating things about the rule is how it scales. On its own, completing a single 2-minute task might not seem like much. But imagine the compounding effect of consistently applying this rule across a week, a month, or a year. Those countless small tasks that would otherwise pile up and sap your energy are now handled effortlessly in real time. The cumulative result is not only a cleaner desk or an emptier inbox, but also a lighter mind and a stronger sense of control over your life. The small becomes big through repetition. In essence, understanding the 2-minute rule means appreciating both its simplicity and its depth. It's a straightforward instruction, yet it reshapes how you think about action, time, and responsibility. It clears away the mental clutter of undone tasks, reduces the cognitive load of decision-making, builds momentum through quick wins, and reinforces a bias toward action. It is a daily reminder that progress often comes not from dramatic leaps, but from small, consistent steps. So the next time you come across a task that can be finished in 2 minutes or less, resist the temptation to push it aside. Don't tell yourself you'll get to it later. Just do it. By understanding and embracing this rule, you give yourself the gift of clarity, momentum, and peace of mind, all of which are the cornerstones of true productivity. The second layer of the 2-minute rule is its incredible usefulness in building habits. Many people think of habits as massive lifestyle changes, waking up 2 hours earlier every day to exercise, reading an entire book every week, or completely overhauling their diet overnight. Because these goals feel so overwhelming, they often collapse under the weight of expectation. The genius of the 2-minute rule is that it reframes habit formation not as a monumental leap, but as a small, nearly effortless beginning. By starting any habit in under 2 minutes, you lower the barrier to entry so much that resistance almost disappears. Consider the goal of reading more. You might want to read 30 minutes a day, but that can feel like a lot, especially if you've fallen out of the habit. Instead of setting the daunting target of half an hour, the 2-minute rule asks only this: read a single page. Almost anyone can commit to a page because it takes less than 2 minutes. Once you're already sitting with the book in hand, there's a good chance you'll continue past that page. But even if you don't, you've still maintained the consistency of your habit. What matters most at the start isn't how much you do, but that you do something at all. This idea has been reinforced by behavioral science. Research in habit psychology shows that the hardest part of any action is initiating it. Once you start, momentum tends to carry you forward. The 2-minute rule capitalizes on this by removing the mental friction that stops you from beginning. If you frame every habit as a tiny action, it becomes something your brain no longer resists. For example, instead of committing to exercise for an hour, the habit becomes put on running shoes. Instead of write 1,000 words, it becomes open the document. The key insight is that you can't improve a habit you don't start. So the most important thing is to simply begin, even if only for 2 minutes. This principle also aligns with what author James Clear describes as the idea of gateway habits. Small actions serve as gateways to larger routines. Brushing your teeth for 2 minutes could be a gateway to a nightly self-care ritual. Sitting down at your desk for 2 minutes could be the gateway to an entire productive work session. The starting point is intentionally easy, but it naturally leads to bigger actions once momentum takes over. Over time, the gateway becomes associated with the broader routine, reinforcing the behavior until it becomes automatic. Think about how often people fail to stick to resolutions. Every new year, millions of individuals promise themselves sweeping changes: get fit, eat healthier, save more money. The enthusiasm burns brightly for a few days or weeks, but the habits rarely stick. Why? Because the goals are too ambitious and the daily actions are too heavy to sustain when motivation fades. The 2-minute rule sidesteps this common pitfall by focusing not on intensity, but on consistency. By shrinking the habit to its smallest possible form, you build a chain of successful repetitions that eventually compounds into meaningful results. The brain begins to identify you with the habit. If you consistently read for just 2 minutes a day, even if it's one page, you start to see yourself as a reader. And once that identity is built, it becomes easier to expand the habit without forcing it. One of the hidden benefits of applying the 2-minute rule to habits is the psychological reward of completion. When you set out to do something and succeed, even if it's small, you feel accomplished. That sense of progress creates a positive feedback loop. Your brain associates the action with a reward, making you more likely to repeat it. This is how tiny habits become strong habits, not through the magnitude of the action, but through the consistency of reinforcement. Over time, these small steps build a foundation of self-trust. You no longer doubt your ability to stick with habits, because you've proven it to yourself over and over again, 2 minutes at a time. Another practical advantage is that the rule bypasses the excuse of time scarcity. How many times have you said, "I don't have time to exercise today," or "I don't have time to meditate"? While a full workout or a 30-minute meditation session might require scheduling, almost anyone can spare 2 minutes. You might not be able to run 5 miles, but you can stretch for 2 minutes. You might not be able to sit in silence for half an hour, but you can close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. By reframing habits as tiny, doable chunks, you remove the false barrier of time and make progress accessible every single day. What's fascinating is how these tiny habits compound. 2 minutes of stretching today doesn't seem like much, but 2 minutes every day for a year means over 12 hours of stretching. Without ever feeling like a massive commitment, 2 minutes of journaling each night creates an archive of reflections you can look back on months later. 2 minutes of tidying up each evening keeps your environment cleaner than hours of cleaning sprees once a month. The accumulation of small, consistent actions is far more powerful than the occasional burst of effort that quickly fizzles out. Understanding the 2-minute rule in the context of habit building also requires a mindset shift. Many people overestimate what they can achieve in a short period, but underestimate what they can accomplish with consistent effort over time. The rule helps recalibrate this perception by focusing on the smallest unit of effort that guarantees progress. You're not aiming to change your life overnight. You're aiming to make a tiny deposit into the account of your future self every single day. Those deposits, like compound interest, grow into something significant over time. Of course, applying the rule doesn't mean you'll never expand beyond 2 minutes. In fact, most of the time you will. The rule's true purpose isn't to limit your habits, but to make them unavoidable to start. Once you've begun, the natural inertia of activity carries you forward. Some days you'll stop after 2 minutes, and that's perfectly fine because you've still succeeded in keeping the habit alive. Other days, you'll continue for far longer, achieving the ambitious results you originally hoped for. Either way, you win because the habit continues. In short, the 2-minute rule is a master key for unlocking the door to habit formation. It lowers resistance, builds consistency, and transforms overwhelming goals into approachable steps. By focusing on the start, rather than the finish, it ensures that habits take root in your daily routine. Over time, those 2 minutes grow into something much larger. Not because you forced yourself into discipline, but because you made starting so easy that success became inevitable. Habits are the building blocks of identity, and the 2-minute rule gives you the simplest, most effective way to start stacking those blocks in your favor. One of the most compelling reasons to embrace the 2-minute rule is its direct effect on procrastination. Procrastination is not simply laziness, it's a deeply ingrained psychological pattern driven by the avoidance of discomfort. When faced with a task, our minds often exaggerate its complexity, making it appear heavier and more unpleasant than it actually is. Even something as simple as responding to a short email can feel burdensome because of the mental narrative we attach to it. This will take effort, or I'll handle it later when I'm in the right mindset. Over time, these small delays build into a mountain of unfinished business, weighing on us mentally and emotionally. The 2-minute rule interrupts this cycle, giving us a way to dismantle procrastination at its source. To see how this works in practice, think about the small tasks you've been putting off for days. Perhaps there's a bill sitting on your desk waiting to be paid, or a form you need to sign and scan, or a simple message you've been meaning to send. None of these actions take more than a couple of minutes, yet they linger, growing larger in your mind with each passing day. This is where the rule acts like a scalpel, cutting through the paralysis. Instead of negotiating with yourself about when to do it, you recognize that it will take less than 2 minutes and simply act. By removing the debate, you remove the delay, and procrastination has no chance to take root. Psychologically, this matters because procrastination feeds on avoidance. The longer you avoid a task, the more intimidating it becomes, even if it's objectively simple. Each moment of avoidance builds tension, and soon the energy required to overcome the mental barrier is far greater than the energy needed to do the task itself. The 2-minute rule flips the script. When you immediately handle small actions, you short-circuit the avoidance loop before it can grow. You reduce the buildup of negative emotions associated with procrastination, replacing them with the relief and satisfaction of completion. It's important to note that procrastination is rarely about time management alone. It's about emotional regulation. We procrastinate not because we don't have enough minutes in the day, but because we want to avoid the discomfort of effort, uncertainty, or potential failure. By focusing on the tiniest version of the task, the 2-minute rule makes it emotionally painless to begin. For example, writing a report might feel daunting, but opening a blank document and typing one sentence is not. Cleaning the entire kitchen may feel exhausting, but washing one plate takes almost no effort. Once you've started, however, you often discover that the task isn't nearly as difficult as you imagined, and you're more willing to continue. This is how the rule dismantles procrastination. Not by fighting it head-on, but by sidestepping its psychological traps. There is also a neurological explanation for why this works. Every time you complete a small action, your brain receives a hit of dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with reward and motivation. These little bursts of satisfaction create a positive association with action rather than avoidance. Over time, this builds a habit loop. You see a small task, you do it instantly, and you feel rewarded. The brain loves this loop, and it begins to crave the reward of completion, making procrastination less appealing. Instead of dreading tasks, you start to take pride in knocking them out quickly. Beyond individual tasks, reducing procrastination through the 2-minute rule has ripple effects on larger goals. When small items no longer clutter your mental landscape, you free up energy to focus on big projects. Many people procrastinate on important work because they're distracted by the nagging weight of minor obligations. By clearing these quickly, you remove friction and open space for deep work. This creates a more focused state of mind where you can approach larger challenges without the background noise of undone chores. Imagine the difference between starting your day with 10 unfinished tasks looming in your mind versus starting it with those 10 already completed. In the first scenario, you're weighed down, your energy diluted by the thought of all that remains undone. In the second, you're energized by progress, your mental slate cleared for meaningful work. This is the hidden cost of procrastination. It's not just the delay of tasks, but the constant psychological burden of carrying them unfinished. By practicing the 2-minute rule, you release yourself from that weight. Another way the rule fights procrastination is by building a reputation with yourself. Procrastination erodes self-trust. When you repeatedly put off tasks, you reinforce the belief that you can't rely on yourself to follow through. This can spiral into guilt, shame, and further avoidance. On the other hand, when you consistently handle tasks immediately, you prove to yourself that you're a person of action. This strengthens your self-image and creates a virtuous cycle. The more you see yourself as someone who gets things done, the less likely you are to procrastinate in the first place. The 2-minute rule makes it easy to rebuild this self-trust, one small victory at a time. There is also a practical advantage in terms of time efficiency. Many people don't realize that procrastination often makes tasks take longer than they should. As mentioned earlier, if you postpone replying to an email, you may later spend extra minutes rereading it, recalling the context, and rethinking your response. What could have been a one-time 90-second effort turns into a multi-step process that drains additional time. The 2-minute rule eliminates this inefficiency by encouraging you to deal with the task once and be done with it. In the long run, this saves hours of wasted re-engagement. However, applying the rule to fight procrastination requires mindfulness. You need to train yourself to recognize which tasks genuinely fit within the 2-minute window. If you misapply the rule by trying to rush through something that deserves careful thought, you risk creating mistakes that will take more time to fix later. The strength of the rule is in handling quick, straightforward actions, signing a form, deleting junk emails, tidying a desk, not in cramming meaningful projects into 2 minutes. When used appropriately, it becomes a precision tool against procrastination, not a blunt instrument. Ultimately, the 2-minute rule is about shifting from a mindset of avoidance to one of immediate action. Procrastination thrives on hesitation, but the rule eliminates hesitation by providing a clear, automatic response. If it takes less than 2 minutes, just do it. Over time, this consistent practice rewires your approach to tasks. Instead of letting things linger and fester, you learn to resolve them quickly and efficiently. The result is not only a dramatic reduction in procrastination, but also a deeper sense of control over your time and energy. You're no longer at the mercy of avoidance. You're guided by a simple principle that empowers you to act. Time is the one resource we can never replenish, and yet so much of it is lost, not to big mistakes, but to small inefficiencies. This is where the 2-minute rule becomes a surprisingly powerful tool for optimizing time management. At its heart, the rule is about minimizing friction and reclaiming pockets of time that would otherwise be wasted on indecision, repetition, or the accumulation of tiny delays. By consistently applying this rule, you can structure your days in a way that preserves your focus for meaningful work while clearing away the noise of smaller tasks. To understand this dynamic, picture how a typical day unfolds for many people. You begin with a plan. There are key projects you want to make progress on, perhaps a presentation to prepare, an important client call, or some deep creative work. But as the day progresses, small interruptions begin to intrude. A notification pings with a simple approval request. A colleague asks for a quick confirmation. A paper lies on your desk, waiting to be filed. None of these actions would take long, but because you delay them, they pile up. By mid-afternoon, you're overwhelmed by a collection of little tasks that now demand attention, pulling you away from the focused work you hope to prioritize. Instead of dedicating energy to your most important responsibilities, you're bogged down by clutter. The 2-minute rule offers a clean solution. By dealing with these micro-tasks the moment they appear, provided they truly take less than 2 minutes, you prevent them from becoming distractions later. This is time optimization in its purest form. It ensures that the small things stay small, leaving your schedule and your mind clear for the big things. You reduce the amount of context switching, which is one of the greatest hidden costs of productivity. Each time you shift from one type of task to another, your brain requires time to reorient. By batching or postponing small tasks, you often force yourself to revisit them multiple times, increasing the cost. The 2-minute rule eliminates this by encouraging a single-touch policy. Handle it once, handle it quickly, and move on. Another way the rule enhances time management is by reducing what's known as cognitive residue. When you leave tasks unfinished, they linger in your mental space, pulling at your attention even when you're working on something else. Psychologists refer to this as the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency of the brain to fixate on incomplete tasks. This mental drag reduces your capacity for deep focus because part of your mind is preoccupied with loose ends. By completing quick tasks immediately, you cut off this drain on attention. The result is not just more time in your day, but higher quality time, because your mental energy is concentrated on the task at hand, rather than scattered across dozens of small reminders. The 2-minute rule also encourages better prioritization. Many people confuse being busy with being productive. They spend their days ticking off minor tasks without making real progress on what matters. By filtering tasks through the lens of the rule, you create a simple hierarchy. If it takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. If it takes longer, decide when it will be done and schedule it accordingly. This prevents the common trap of letting small tasks eat into the time reserved for significant work. It creates a clear distinction between what deserves immediate action and what deserves deliberate planning. Consider an office worker managing a flood of emails. Without a system, they might spend hours sifting through the inbox, constantly distracted, unsure which messages to deal with first. With the 2-minute rule, the process becomes streamlined. If a reply takes under 2 minutes, send it right away. If it requires more thought, flag it and allocate time later. This prevents the inbox from spiraling out of control, while also protecting time for deeper responses. The same principle applies beyond emails, to meetings, household chores, errands, and even personal goals. It creates a rhythm of efficiency that compounds throughout the day. There's also a hidden multiplier effect to this practice. By completing small tasks promptly, you reduce the likelihood of them growing into larger ones. A sink with one dirty dish is a 2-minute problem. Left unattended, it becomes a 30-minute cleanup. Sorting one piece of mail is quick. Letting mail pile up for weeks becomes an afternoon of sorting. The 2-minute rule keeps tasks at their smallest, saving you from the time-consuming consequences of neglect. This is a form of preventive time management, nipping problems in the bud before they escalate. Some might argue that constantly addressing small tasks could interrupt focus, and this is a valid concern. The rule doesn't mean you should abandon deep work every time a minor item arises. The key is to apply it with discernment. If you're in the middle of an important focus session, it may be better to capture the task in a quick note and return to it later. However, in the natural gaps between focused work, checking emails, transitioning between meetings, or winding down at the end of the day, the rule is invaluable. By using these transition moments to clear out 2-minute actions, you protect the prime hours of your day for the tasks that truly deserve your undivided attention. Another aspect of optimizing time through this rule is the psychological sense of momentum it creates. Each small task completed instantly becomes a marker of progress. This builds a rhythm of accomplishment that fuels motivation and makes it easier to move into larger tasks. Time management is not only about scheduling hours, but also about managing energy. A person who feels weighed down by unfinished tasks wastes time in hesitation. A person who feels the momentum of progress is more likely to use their time boldly. The 2-minute rule helps you shift into this productive state of flow. On a broader scale, the rule cultivates discipline in how you use your time. It teaches you to respect the small increments, which are often overlooked, but incredibly valuable. 2 minutes may seem insignificant in isolation, but repeated dozens of times a day. Those minutes add up to hours saved each week. Over a year, the difference is striking. By capturing and optimizing these small windows, you gain back time that would otherwise slip through the cracks. This disciplined approach compounds over weeks and months, creating a noticeable advantage in both professional and personal life. Ultimately, the 2-minute rule is not just about saving minutes here and there. It's about creating a system that maximizes the quality and efficiency of your time as a whole. By clearing small tasks immediately, you reduce clutter, avoid procrastination, minimize context switching, and free up mental and temporal space for what truly matters. You begin to see time not as something to be filled, but as something to be invested wisely. With each 2-minute decision, you protect your attention, safeguard your priorities, and build a life where your hours are spent on the things that genuinely move you forward. Perhaps the most overlooked yet profoundly impactful benefit of the 2-minute rule is its ability to boost your sense of accomplishment and cultivate a steady stream of positive energy throughout the day. Human beings are wired to seek progress. We thrive on the satisfaction of moving forward, of crossing something off a list, of completing what we set out to do. When this sense of progress is absent, we feel stuck, drained, and unmotivated. But when we generate small, continuous wins, our brains reward us with motivation and energy to keep going. The 2-minute rule taps directly into this psychological mechanism, transforming what might otherwise feel like an ordinary day into a string of tangible achievements. Think about how you feel on a day when tasks pile up and nothing gets completed. The weight of unfinished business lingers in your mind, leaving you with a sense of frustration and inertia. Now contrast that with a day where you steadily knock out small items as they arise. You respond to messages, tidy your desk, sort your papers, wash a cup, confirm an appointment, all within minutes. By the end of the day, even if you haven't tackled your largest project yet, you feel lighter, more in control, and more capable. That sense of accomplishment doesn't come from massive breakthroughs. It comes from consistent, visible progress. The 2-minute rule ensures that progress is always within reach. What makes these small wins so powerful is their compounding psychological effect. Each time you complete a 2-minute task, your brain releases a dose of dopamine, reinforcing the behavior and making you feel good. This chemical reward system motivates you to repeat the action, creating a positive feedback loop. Over time, you become someone who naturally seeks out and completes tasks rather than avoiding them. You start the day with momentum, and that momentum carries into larger goals. In this way, the rule not only boosts your mood but also gradually reshapes your identity into that of a productive, action-oriented person. The positive energy generated by small accomplishments doesn't just benefit productivity, it spills over into your emotional well-being. A cluttered environment or a backlog of minor tasks can create a subtle undercurrent of stress that affects your mood throughout the day. Each unfinished item is like a pebble in your shoe, small but irritating. By handling these tasks immediately, you remove those pebbles before they accumulate, leaving you more relaxed and at ease. This emotional clarity gives you the mental space to approach challenges with greater resilience and optimism. Instead of feeling bogged down, you feel energized and capable. This sense of accomplishment is also critical for sustaining motivation on long-term projects. Big goals, writing a book, launching a business, getting fit, often take weeks, months, or even years to complete. Without short-term markers of progress, it's easy to lose steam. The 2-minute rule helps bridge the gap by ensuring that even while working towards something long-term, you're accumulating daily wins. For example, you may not finish a book in one day, but you can tidy your workspace, brainstorm one idea, or read one page, all in 2 minutes. These micro-completions build a sense of movement that keeps you engaged with the larger journey. Moreover, the positive energy created by small wins is contagious. When you consistently complete tasks, others notice. Colleagues see you as reliable, responsive, and efficient. Friends and family notice that you're less stressed and more present. This creates a reinforcing social loop. People trust you more, give you more opportunities, and support your efforts, which in turn boosts your confidence and productivity. In this way, the 2-minute rule doesn't just improve your internal state, it strengthens your external relationships and reputation. There's also a deeper identity shift that happens with repeated application of the rule. Every time you complete a small task immediately, you're sending a message to yourself. I am someone who finishes what I start. This identity shift is far more powerful than relying on bursts of motivation. Motivation is fleeting, but identity is enduring. When you see yourself as someone who acts promptly, procrastination loses its grip. The rule reinforces this identity daily, 2 minutes at a time, until it becomes ingrained in your self-image. And with this identity comes a natural sense of accomplishment, because you're no longer waiting for big milestones to validate your progress. You're finding validation in the steady rhythm of small victories. Critically, the energy boost from small accomplishments is renewable. Unlike willpower, which tends to deplete over time, the sense of progress builds on itself. Each completed action provides a burst of momentum that fuels the next. It's like walking up a staircase. Each step may be small, but together they carry you upward. By the end of the day, you're not exhausted from forcing yourself through tasks. You're uplifted by the cumulative effect of consistent, positive action. This is why people who apply the 2-minute rule often report feeling more energized, not less, despite doing more. It's worth noting that this principle works equally well in personal life as in professional settings. Imagine arriving home after a long day. Instead of leaving your bag on the floor, you hang it up immediately. Instead of dropping your clothes in a heap, you put them away. Instead of scrolling aimlessly on your phone, you water a plant or write down tomorrow's priorities. Each action takes under 2 minutes, but together they create a sense of order and accomplishment that transforms your environment and mood. Over time, this becomes a way of living. You continuously generate small bursts of progress that uplift your energy and improve your quality of life. Ultimately, the 2-minute rule is not just a productivity strategy, it's a philosophy of momentum. It reminds us that fulfillment doesn't come only from grand achievements, but from the steady accumulation of small, completed actions. Every task completed, no matter how minor, is a victory against inertia. Every small win is fuel for your confidence and energy, and every bit of progress contributes to the story you tell yourself about who you are and what you're capable of. By embracing this mindset, you transform the way you move through your days. Less weighed down by unfinished business, more uplifted by constant accomplishment, and filled with the kind of positive energy that makes bigger goals not only possible, but inevitable. The truth is, lasting productivity doesn't always require complex systems or endless to-do lists. Sometimes the smallest habits make the biggest impact. The 2-minute rule for productivity proves that success starts with action, no matter how small. By applying it daily, you'll build focus, reduce stress, and steadily move closer to your goals, 2 minutes at a time.